Hi everyone, thank you for coming into Bank of Books, and we'd like to welcome anyone who is in the area to come in and hear Sonia Marsh talk about how she and her husband decided to leave a life of excess in Orange County and take their 3 teenage sons and live life more simply on a tropical island, or a tropical island, yeah.
Yes.
And so she's going to talk about that experience, and she's also going to talk about how she took her journal that she kept on the island and turned it into a memoir, and what that process is like, and how she, what her experiences were with that, and how she has learned to create an author platform using virtual book tours and blogging and Twitter to create a whole experience now that's called Gutsy Living on a blog that she keeps. And she has, very, big people in the literature world on her blog posting their gutsy stories now, and she's going to have an event of Gutsy Living. So we want to hear all about it, Sonia.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, sorry. Oh, I better not fall. That would be terrible. Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you, Anne, for inviting me to talk today. I love your store, and to be honest with you, this is my second time in Malibu. My first time was about 2 weeks ago when I dropped off the books. Can you believe that I've lived here for 30 years and this is only my... I've been to Belize, I've been to Africa, I've been all over, but second time here. Anyway, I'd like to make this an informal, kind of interactive presentation, if that's what you would like. And of course I'm going to talk a little bit about my book and our adventure being Gutsy moving to Belize. But as Kim mentioned, if any of you are authors, writers, I know you are, and would like to ask questions about the writing process and marketing and promotion, I'm happy to talk about that too. So just raise your hand and tell me we're tired of hearing this, we want to talk about something else. You're tired already?
No, I have a question already. Do you want me to wait?
Well, you can ask it if it's...
How did you self-publish? Was it hard or was it expensive?
Well, that was a long process too, and I'll talk about it more later. Unless you want me to. Do you want me to discuss that now? Okay, so I'll talk about that at the end. Okay.
Okay.
So my family's gutsy story and adventure is about much more than just uprooting our family and reconnecting on a tropical island. It's about taking risks in life. And I notice the more I speak about this, the more I realize how people want to talk more about that gutsy attitude in life, about living your passion, living your dream. And what I have decided is I like to talk to people and motivate them to not postpone their dreams. The reason being that in life we will always find excuses to postpone our dreams. And at different stages of life, it's different things. So when you're young, you probably don't have money. And then you get married and you have a family and then you have small kids, so you decide you're not going to do that at that time. And then you have college expenses, so you can't take off because you have to make money to pay for college. After that, you have aging parents that you have to take care of, or you say, we'll do it when we retire. But as I saw with my own mother, she passed away at 57. And my husband's father passed away at 62, 63. So they never got to do the traveling and the things that they wanted to do in life. And then of course there's health issues. I have a couple of friends right now in their 50s whose spouse has had a stroke. So there's always going to be a reason to not pursue those dreams that you have. And what I like to tell people is to do it now. Just do it. Even if it's just planning it, start now. And of course, the best excuse is when you have grandkids. Then you say, oh, we can't move because of the grandkids. So many of us have reached a point in life where we're overwhelmed, overstressed, driving on gridlocked freeways, too many bills, and if you're young or if you have kids at home like we had in 2003, 2004, I have 3 sons, they were 16, 13, and 10. There are peer pressures in high school, and then the entitlement attitude of children. And kids constantly begging for more stuff. And we got so fed up with all these things that there was a time where everything escalated to the point where it was just our 16-year-old son was making life hell for the rest of my family. I had no time to spend with the other 2 because he was getting in trouble in high school with girlfriends, other things, and he was heading down the wrong path. So we had, in my opinion, 2 choices. We could either ship him off to a behavior modification school, which, if you've ever checked those out, they cost a fortune. And we didn't want to use college money on that, and there's no guarantee. Or the other thing was to move away as a family. And we were a little bit selfish too. My husband wanted adventure. He's an attorney, and he has never really enjoyed his job. Wanted to get away and have some adventure. We were in our mid to late 40s. And I wanted my paradise. I have always loved tropical islands. From the time I was 18, my parents took me on a trip to the Bahamas, and I swore that I would one day live on a tropical island. Just that turquoise water, I figured this is the most beautiful place. So selfishly, I was looking for paradise. So we decided to chuck it all and to uproot our family and sell everything we owned and move to Belize, Central America. The problem was that the Caribbean is very expensive, and we didn't really know at the time where we should move. Ironically, thanks to a leaking toilet, a Scottish plumber came to my house, and being from Europe myself, and I've lived in Scotland, we started chit-chatting, and I asked him, so where are you going to retire? And he said, Belize. And this was 2003, and I'd never heard of Belize. I said, where is it? He said, it's the next country south of Mexico. And I said, really? What about prices? He said, oh, you can buy oceanfront for $15,000, and you can buy your an island for $100,000. That sounded too good to be true, so as soon as he left, I spent the entire day just Googling Belize and seeing if this was really true. And then I discovered that it was true, although the $15,000 properties weren't exactly the kind of place that we would want to live. But there's a book, an author named Lance Sluder, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, S-L-U-D-E-R, who's an expert on Belize. And my husband and I spent days, months, just going through his books and finally deciding that we needed to get away and do a scouting trip. So we took a 10-day scouting trip without the kids, and what we did was we had determined there were 3 parts of Belize that we wanted to check out. The most beautiful part is the island of Ambergris Caye. Have any of you been there? No? Have any of you heard of the John McAfee antivirus guy, that whole thing that's been going on right now? There was a 2-hour program on television not long ago where they showed the island, and actually we were living right maybe a few feet away from this guy. So that was the expensive part of the island, and we thought, why are we moving to the expensive part? So we decided, let's check out the other parts. Corozal is in the northern part of Belize, right south of, close to the border with Mexico. And the schools were supposedly good there, and they speak English. That's another reason we picked Belize. And then the third place we visited was Placentia in the south. And those 3 locations are where most of the expats moved to from America, Canada. Yep.
Whose colony was it? Police?
British.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They became independent in 1983. And since my husband only speaks English, we had to pick a country where they don't speak any other language. No. Anyway. And also for the kids, for schools. So we decided on the northern part in Consejo Shores, which is a retirement community, but it's safe. And the kids could go to school in Corozal. And you know what? We found a house to rent. But it was so funny because the realtor told us, I've got a house that you can rent. It belongs to the liar. The liar? Who's the liar? Well, the liar, like your husband, the liar. That's how they pronounce lawyer. Oh, I married a liar, yeah. So, in fact, what was wonderful is that my husband managed to telecommute for the first 3 months. He moved 3 months before us, and he was working there for 3 weeks in Belize, and then coming back to Orange County for 1 week to do his trials. And so it worked out for a while, and my job was to sell the house, the furniture, and everything. And we moved from a 5-bedroom house in Orange County on a lake to Belize in 1 day. But guess what? That house was not available. It was a hut. And the liar decided she no longer wanted to rent it. So we ended up in a hut with a palapa, you know, the palm-fronded ceilings, and no glass in the windows, and a wonderful, wonderful family of scorpions, geckos, and ants that were, I mean, I have never seen ants that could hold a 1-inch twig and, you know, transport it up and down. So we had that kind of family. And you can imagine the kids' initial reaction. I'll read you a little excerpt. Mom, I hate this place, Alex said as I walked in the front door. The water stinks, there are bugs everywhere, and I found peanut husks on my bed. Yeah, Mom, Josh added. Dad said a mouse made the mess on our beds. Why did you and Dad bring us here? Steve remained surprisingly quiet. Steve was the oldest, who was the troublemaker, and it was like magic. All of a sudden, he didn't complain. I think that was the best thing, is when you take a kid out of their comfortable environment, they don't know how to react anymore. I should have read to you the initial conversation that I had with my husband when he saw the hut, the unexpected hut. I think we made a mistake, Duke said, calling me after his first night in the hut. What do you mean? My heart started racing. Don't panic. Duke knew me well. It's just the hut. It's infested with bugs. You should see my legs. I look like I have chicken pox. Alex going to freak out, I said. A scorpion landed on my pillow during the night. You're kidding, right? This didn't sound like my husband, the man who took me camping and got upset when I asked him, so where's the tent? Are they dangerous? I asked, concerned for our kids. Evelyn said they sting, but they don't kill you. Noticing my lack of response, Duke added, the good news is mosquitoes only come out after the rain. Normally they stay in the jungle behind our hut. When Duke described our water supply, I thought he was exaggerating. We only have cold water and it stinks of sulfur from the well. The shower barely trickles, the pressure's too low. I hope I can fix that. Try to find another house that's less primitive. Carlos said there's nothing in Consejo Shores but the huts. So anyway, at first the kids refused to get out of the hut. And it took about 2 weeks. And then Alec, the middle son, who's the compliant one, everything bad seems to happen to him. I felt so bad for him. Have you heard of a poisonwood tree? It's a bit like poison ivy, but much worse. And apparently you don't even need to touch it. Some people are so highly allergic to this tree that just walking past it, they can break out. So this is what happened to Alec. the reason that I know that he got this is our neighbors told us, but you get a black patch on your skin. And the funny thing is that it looks like a Sharpie. And I took some cotton balls trying to rub it off, but nothing happens. And then if you touch yourself, that it causes red marks, and then it spreads all over you, and his eyes got completely swollen. He couldn't open them anymore. So with all this and the blisters, we tried some tribal remedy. There's a tree called the gumbo limbo tree, which just happens to grow next to the poisonwood tree and is the antidote. And I thought that was amazing that they grow next to one another. And this Belizean guy told us that we needed to scrape the bark of the gumbo limbo and put it on his body. Well, you think that worked? We're trying scraping this, and it's like sawdust, and we're throwing it on his body. Nothing happens. I'm expecting instant results. And then we started boiling the leaves of the gumbo and making like a spinach paste that we were supposed to put all over his body. That didn't work. So finally, my husband took him to the local hospital in Corozal and left him there. And he's 13. And it's a filthy hospital. And I said, what are you doing leaving your 13-year-old there? The doctors were from Cuba and a Pakistani doctor. And my poor son can't communicate with them, and he's scared to death. And there's a lot of problems with AIDS in Belize, and they're sticking an IV in him. So I was, panicking. And thankfully, he went back, took him out as soon as the IV was done, because they didn't want him to leave, took him home, and it took 5 weeks for him to heal.
They gave him an IV for a skin infection?
Yeah, well, because he was swollen completely.
Oh, antibiotics?
Yeah. So on his 14th birthday, there were no presents. There's nothing to buy in Belize. So what do? We take him to the Mayan ruins. And of course they were complaining, but today they talk about it as a good thing. And so I said we planned on the local schools. And in the summer, we could purchase the books ahead of time. And Alec, being the studious type, said, can we go get the books? So we go to the Ministry of Education, and the only book available is English, is the English book for 9th grade. And what do they have in the book? Well, he's in the back looking at the book, and all of a sudden we hear, ah! And we said, what's going on? And he said, do you know what they have in this book? How to tell time, and how to put ing at the end of a word, and this is 9th grade. What are you going to do about my education? We didn't know. I mean, we couldn't go back to the US, everything was gone. So we had to talk to some of the other Americans who were around, and apparently there was an internet program that a lot of the American kids were doing called Keystone National High School. But this meant that we had to move. And since my husband got fired because he couldn't bill 200 hours a month from a hut where there was no electricity, or it went on and off, bugs all over the place, and the internet was sporadic from the satellite dish, we finally said, this is it, we have to move to the nice island where the tourists are and where most of the Americans live. And we ended up purchasing a house 5 miles north of San Pedro, which is where the John McAfee and Greg Fowle, the guy that was murdered, were living. I'll tell you more about that later. And we purchased a house. There were 4 villas. We had the one in the front. The other 3 were owned by Americans who lived in the US and rented them out for income. And I'm telling you this for a reason. So we were the only full-time people living there. Now the good part is that there was a young couple, Juan, who was 21, his wife Teresa, 20, and their 4-year-old son, who were the caretakers of this property, and they would rake the beach and all this. And they ended up becoming our best friends. And their little son, my kids adopted and taught him how to speak English, and that was the best thing that happened. So one of the things that also happened was my kids learned a really important lesson about education. Education being a privilege, not a right. And the way this happened is something I could never have done over here in California. Juan and Teresa spoke Spanish at home, and yet their English was good. Juan summarized their short life together. He was 21 and Teresa 20. They were married at 17 and 16 in order to have sex, Teresa said. Sex isn't allowed unless you are married, she continued, not at all embarrassed in front of my kids. 9 months after our wedding, little Juan arrived, she added. What about high school? I asked. I quit school at 12 to work in the sugarcane fields, Juan said. I work from 5 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon, 7 days a week. My boys turned quiet. I got paid $75, which I gave my dad to pay for food. He paused, took a sip of water, and continued. I have 11 brothers and sisters. Teresa also quit school at 12 because her parents couldn't afford the books. My boys liked Juan and listened to every word he said. No lecture in the world could have been more effective than Juan's story in teaching my boys gratitude and how privileged they were to get an education. And that stayed with them. So other problems that were life-changing were the fact that getting food was such an amazing problem. It was a full-time job to get food. Everything we did was by boat. There were no roads, which was wonderful because we would take our kids to school and we'd see dolphins. So our new motto is from the stores, if they don't have what you want what they have. Because 1 week you would find eggs, then you'd wait 2 weeks, no eggs. Okay, so what's next week? Milk. Milk often was like cottage cheese because it was shipped in from the Mennonite community on the mainland, and it was left on the runway in the sun for a couple of hours before they took it into the refrigerator. So we drank powdered milk from Mexico. And of course the thing my kids wanted more than anything, imagine that, instead of a BMW, it was a fresh glass of milk. That's what they were longing for. And the kids started fishing, and nature was our entertainment, as well as our little dog, which I didn't mention we brought with us from Orange County. And I have to read you this little excerpt here. Does anyone know how the oven works? I asked. No, Duke said, I've never used it. Unlike my California oven, this one used gas, so I opened the oven door to figure out where to stick a match to light it. Just as my eyes reached mid-shelf, a huge rat made direct eye contact with me. I quickly shut the oven door, yelling, "There's a rat in the oven!" The boys immediately thought of Cookie, our suburban rat terrier, and opened the door to see whether she knew what rat terriers were bred for. All 5 of us stood behind Cookie, waiting for some entertainment. She placed her front paws on the open oven door and wagged her tail. Not quite the reaction we'd expected. She finally attempted to jump inside the oven just as the rat ran in a hole in the wall. I made mashed potatoes instead of baked potatoes for dinner. And my husband had time finally for his sons. The kids would sit and talk, something that I'd never seen them do in Orange County. Life became really simple, and it was more about family and compassion. Now, the thing is, how did we make a living? Well, we were living off our savings, and this was becoming a financial problem for us. And finding a business, I discovered that my kids really got involved, even at that young age, to try and help us. And we finally decided to start property management. And I mentioned John McAfee, and I mentioned Greg Fowle. Greg was a contractor from Florida, and we knew him, and he's the guy who's been murdered recently. And he came to our house for beer and told us that he thought we should start a property management business in the northern part where we were living, because there weren't any. Well, we did. But my husband tried to do it the American way. he started a website and he was giving advice to American tourists where they could purchase cheaper food and wine and things like that, and to drink the local beer. Don't try to, eat the American way. And immediately we got threatening phone calls. We were living on an island. We were stepping on other people's turf. They didn't want us to give advice to tourists. One boat guy was charging $100 for a 5-minute boat ride, and the tourists would ask us, is that normal? And we would say, no, you can get it for like $15. So what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to lie to the tourists, or are we supposed to tell the truth? So we told the truth, and then we got in trouble. And I don't have any proof of this, but on one day, our boat started sinking with us in it. And we thought we'd hit some coral, but actually no, we hadn't. We were told that somebody had pulled something out, yeah. And my son had an old sailboat, and the anchors had been cut off, and it was drifting towards shore on the same day as our boat was sinking. So of course we thought sabotage, which is pretty typical. And if you've been watching that Greg Fowle and all this, you'll hear the gossip, and this is how life is. But we were getting desperate, and we needed to start a business, so the atmosphere was getting a little bit uncomfortable, and we finally made a decision that we had succeeded in what our goal was, reconnecting our family, so we could move back to the U.S. It had been 1 year. The kids were back on track, my oldest son. And our value systems had changed. We were grateful for small things in life. I'll never forget when we came back and went to a supermarket, and I was standing in front of the cereal aisle, and I saw, oh my gosh, there's so many choices, I can't believe it. And the staff, one of the guys working at the store thought I was crazy. He came up and asked me why I was standing there. Did I need assistance? I said, yeah, I need help making a decision. I don't know what to pick. So we decided to live a more frugal life coming back. We never purchased we always purchased used cars, and my kids didn't expect anything expensive. They didn't want anything. And the good part about it is that our oldest son went to university, the one who was off track, got an engineering degree, is now working. He's 25 today. Our middle son is at UCSB and is going to become a doctor, and he thanks Belize for that experience that he had in that hospital and not being able to communicate with those doctors. And our youngest son didn't really fit in when he came back to high school. He said, Mom, they all compare jeans and shoes, and he decided he wanted to go to a military school. And he went to New Mexico and is now in the National Guard and wants to, unfortunately for a mom, but wants to be deployed in the Army and go active. So my search for paradise, I have to say I came to a conclusion which I would like to read from my book. All of us, my sons included, have learned to take risks in life, to embrace adventure, and to accept different ways of thinking about life's challenges. And though Belize failed to live up to my cliched vision of paradise, it taught me that paradise is not a place, but a state of being. I discovered my Caribbean paradise within my family, a gift far richer than I could have imagined possible, and for that I shall remain eternally grateful to Belize. So, now that I've told you a little bit about our gutsy adventure, I'd be happy to talk about the publishing and writing, and I do have My Gutsy Story series for anybody who wants to write their own gutsy story. What? Gutsy Story series, I started it in October 2011, and I never thought that it would continue this long. What it is a story about something in your life that you've done that's either gutsy or that has changed you in some way, made your life take a different direction. And it's 1,000 words long maximum, and people have been submitting more and more, including some teachers from UCLA. I am honestly shocked that now I'm getting the National Association of Memoir Writers president submitting her My Gutsy Story. So it's been growing, and I would like to do an event this year, probably in October. And if my goal would be to get all these writers from around the world, many of them would like to come, there's about 65 of us now, and then invite a gutsy person. And I'm trying desperately to think, who do I know who's famous and gutsy who would come? And that's the thing, I know a lot of gutsy people, but whether they would come or not is a different story. So anyway, that's my goal with the My Gutsy Story series. Thank you. We're back in Orange County, but we're planning another move. My kids aren't home anymore, so they're on their own.
So what's next then? Where do you want to move?
My husband and I are kind of, he wants to do things too. His goal in life is to do indie films, and that's what he's doing every weekend. My goal is to do Peace Corps, which is a 27-month commitment. I feel, I used to live in Africa when I was little. I speak French. I would love to go to an African French-speaking country and do something there for a while. And like I said, Peace Corps would be great. Teaching English in another country. I'd like to visit Panama. They don't have hurricanes in Panama.
Sonia, I have a question. Can you tell us a little bit about how you kept your journal and how long you wrote in it?
Yeah.
What steps did you do when you got back to turn it into a book?
Yes. The best thing that happened to me was when a couple of friends said, you know, Sonia, that was about a year before we left, you really need to turn this into a book. And I had never written a book in my life, and I had thought about that. I thought, you know, this adventure is not something that everybody does. So I started writing in a journal, but where it became really easy was to keep the journal in Belize, because we had a lot of free time. I mean, there were no distractions, no TV, no cell phones, no movie theaters, nothing. Life is slow. So I would type every day, and every day was an adventure. I mean, you'd see a huge spider that you'd never see here. You mean, like I said, the ants with the twigs. I mean, there was always something different going on. And then the good part about keeping a journal is that you can write the dialogue down immediately. So if you have an argument with your husband or wife, go to your computer and write it while it's fresh, because that is when it's juicy. You know, a lot of memoir writers wait and then rely on their memory several years later, but there's no way I could do that. I mean, my memory is terrible. And to remember what I said to my kids 7 years ago, I mean, it's not going to sound real. So I recommend journaling and transforming the journal into a memoir. I was very naive at the time. I came back from Belize, and the first class I took was how to write a book proposal. I don't know why I took that. I mean, well, I guess because nonfiction, you can sell it with a proposal, although a memoir is more like fiction. So you should really have the finished product before you try to ship, to meet agents or editors. So I took this class on how to write a book proposal, and the teacher said, you know, it takes about 6 years for most people to write a book. And I said, 6 years? What's wrong with those people? I can do it in a year. Well, no, it took me 7. Because of editing, hiring editors, going through the whole process, taking classes, going to conferences. And I wanted it to be commercial. I didn't want it just to be a little book that I gave to my family and friends. I wanted it to be professional. So now I know that it's not going to happen just that easily. And journaling saved me. I could not have written this without a journal. And I could not have written it without the help of, I actually went through 4 different editors for various reasons. The last one was a proofreader, but the first one, I thought I was ready. And this was about 2 years after I started transforming the journal into a memoir. And her name is Deborah Ginsberg, and she's a well-known writer. She had written a memoir about her son who has autism. And she's in San Diego, and she looked at my manuscript and she said, Sonia, half your book is memoir and the other half is a journal. You haven't completed it yet. But she was very helpful, and so I recommend asking the advice of an editor.
So what's the difference between the two, the journal and memoir?
Well, you need a structure. Any story needs a structure, and you also need a message. And I think one of the mistakes I made, and I think a lot of people make, is that they don't know what the message is that they want to give. And sometimes it takes a long time. You know, you could be writing, and until you know what your message is, you don't really know what fits in the book and what doesn't fit. I mean, knowing that it's about being gutsy, that it's about reconnecting a family, enabled me to eliminate a lot that didn't belong in the book. I mean, originally it was 600 pages. That's way too long. And I, of course, like everybody, thinks, oh, it's all important. It all has to be there. But it didn't, you know, and then when you hear people say, well, this chapter doesn't really fit. You say, what? It doesn't fit? Why not? And so then when you figure that out, the message is what leads you. It's kind of guiding you along. It helps to know that. Yeah. Yes?
How do you run your website? Is it automated now? Or do you have to like paste and all that stuff?
No, I blog twice a week. Mondays is the My Gutsy Story, and Thursdays I write something gutsy myself, or something related to writing. I started a Facebook group called Gutsy Indie Publishers, and I never thought that it would grow that quickly, but we're like 190 people, and it hasn't even been a year, and it's all people who want to help one another, you know, and we support one another and we promote one another, and it's just a wonderful place to go when you have a question. You know, who should I hire for an editor? How should I publish? Should I go with CreateSpace? Should I go with Lightning Source? Should I start my own publishing company? I mean, we all brainstorm, and what's nice is that the other people, and also you promote your own, you know, your own events. So.
How are you going to run it when you leave Orange County? You're
Well, I
to
can.
Africa and there's no internet there.
Oh yes, there is.
There is? Oh, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
It's
There are
safe.
many Peace Corps people who write blogs.
Oh, I see.
My cousin's daughter is in Madagascar, and she's keeping a blog. So,
I see.
yeah.
Is your event in Orange County? The event you said in October?
Yeah, I've been trying to get the Newport Beach Library, which is a beautiful library down there. I don't know if you're familiar with it. You seem to be. And they have author events, and I've been volunteering there for 4 years. So I was hoping that maybe I could do something there. You know, the guy that I mentioned, Lance Sluder, that we studied his book before we went to Belize, I gave him my book, and he actually endorsed it. And so connections through blogging, I started 4 years ago, and I recommend that anybody who wants to write a book needs to start way ahead with getting yourself out there so people know who you are, and so you have supporters.
So are you planning on turning the book into a script form so your husband can read it?
Oh, you know what? I don't want my husband to do it.
It's like Robinson Crusoe.
Yeah, it is. I've been told by so many people that it's very visual, and I've also been told it could go easily into a movie, and it would be my dream if that could happen. I do think it's a very relevant story. I mean, it talks about, you know, our society today, and many people face these problems with kids. So I think it is a...
Then go for it.
Well, I wish you know, it's very difficult to get the right contacts, and At one point I was going to hire a publicist, but it's out of my reach financially. So everything I do, I have to do myself.
But if you turn it into a script form,
Mhm.
then after that you can just, that's the first step, and then after that you can, find the producers and send it to different companies that will read the script.
But that's the secret, is to find those producers, because I've been listening to so many webinars and seminars on how to get your, it's the marketing.
Yeah.
The writing is what most people like to do, and it's getting it in the right person's hands is the tough part. Yeah.
I think your husband maybe should draw something up so somebody else doesn't read your book and make the movie. But you have the rights to it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I had an attorney tell me I should do that with mine. I go, nobody would want to pick a movie about my book.
Yeah.
But yours they would, so.
Yeah.
Did you copyright your book?
Yeah.
How did you get it, how did you go to the publishing stage?
Well, okay, so 2 years ago was the last conference I went to in San Diego, which was to meet agents. And the whole thing was a pitch thing, pitching to agents and editors. And at that time, it wasn't quite ready yet, and this is something that writers refuse to listen to advice. We always think we know it, right? We know how to start the story. We know where it should go. Well, I wasn't ready. I started my story in Orange County. Everyone kept telling me, start the story with the action in Belize. That's hook your reader right away. And I never read the first page to you guys, but that is, I start with a storm in Belize when my husband and I are so stupid that we take our boat out and Hurricane Ivan is approaching, and we're on this boat because we've just moved to the island of Ambergris Caye. My 10-year-old son is at a school. He has no idea how to get home, and we don't have an address. The houses don't have addresses there. There's no road. So we take our boat out and we almost capsize. And I say, what the hell have we done moving to this godforsaken island in order to save our family, and now we're putting our family at risk? So that's what I learned finally, was to change the beginning. And I think I might have had an editor or an agent interested. In fact, I had someone interested in publishing for me. But when she saw that I didn't follow her advice, she turned me down. And so I just kept going and going and going. And I said, I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to keep going. And then I finally, with the publishing world that's changed and so many people are doing their own publishing today, I finally decided I'm going to start Gutsy Publications. I've branded the Gutsy theme for 4 years. I've been blogging, building an audience. Why not just go for it? And I want to do an anthology of Gutsy stories, so it makes sense. So that's how come I started that and did it that way, rather than trying to pursue another agent. Because it's another 2 or 3 years. And I've already been doing it for 7. So, yeah.
Agents are as hard to get as publishers, basically.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of them are going out of business and changing.
Yeah, everything's changing.
Are you published, or have you?
I'm self-published.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you recouped your investment?
No.
Oh.
And you do it for the passion. Obviously, a lot of people want to become rich. My whole goal is I wanted to share my story. And I want to motivate people to take risks. Of course, it'd be nice if it turned into a movie. I wouldn't complain.
How are your books doing on Amazon? And your e-books, how are they doing?
I'm in an indie bookstore, and I know that I know indie bookstores don't care much for Amazon, but Amazon sales are 70% of sales for online. And yeah, they're doing well. And I did a book signing in Paris because I used to live in France and they have an English bookstore in there. And my goal is to go to bookstores around Europe and indie bookstores and make presentations. I'd love to do that. Yeah. Yes? Did you have a question? Mark. It's Mark, right? No.
Oh, I do have several, but...
Well, ask. Yeah.
This isn't about publishing, but when you took off, why did you choose where you chose?
Why did we choose Belize?
Yes.
Because of the plumber. No. We chose Belize because they speak English. It's the only country in Central America where they speak English. We read that they had a 97% literacy rate, which my husband ended up saying, it means they know how to sign their name. Because, as I said, the school books were not good. And I wanted a Caribbean location that was affordable. Those are the three reasons.
What did it cost you to live there, if you don't mind me asking?
You know, there are two ways you can live there. You can live the locals' way or the American way. We chose more the locals' way, so we ate chicken, rice and beans, the steaks and all that. If you wanted to eat that way, that's very expensive, much more than here. The restaurants cost more that serve wine and food like that. I can't give you a budget.
Right, like for rent.
You can find rent. You can rent places, houses for like $500. But you know, a lot of people think that you have to be rich to do this, and this is the whole point. Is, like I said, there are always options in life, and I believe that you can do so many things if you don't have money as well. You can do house sitting. I would love, if I weren't married and didn't have a family, I would take off to Australia and do house sitting. I just have this passion to do things and see different countries and experience them that way. Lots of people live on Social Security in Belize, Americans, because they can't afford to live here. And there they can rent a house and eat and have, you know, the turquoise Caribbean within walking distance. So, yeah.
You got in trouble with the locals because you tried to start a business. Mm-hmm. Do the retired people have any trouble at all? Or do they participate in the politics?
I think the best thing is to stay out of the politics. You know, the thing that shocked me a lot is you don't know who you can trust. You think that people are your friends, and you open up, and then you realize that they can, like I said in the book, today's friends can become tomorrow's enemies. You never know who to trust because it's a small island, and everybody is there to make a living. But I think if you are retired, I mean, the ideal would be if you have an internet business that you can either a writer or you get paid by an American company, which is what we wanted to do in the beginning with the legal transcription business that my husband wanted to do. But then, as I said, electricity would go off for sometimes 10 hours. No American company is going to want to work with you if you can't provide the documents they need right away. So we couldn't do that.
How about
Sorry.
food-wise? Did you ever decide to grow a vegetable garden?
You know, I wish.
Goats and milk the goats.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Okay, so vegetables. They were imported to the island, and I know one American woman from San Diego who moved up north, beautiful, Mexico Rocks it's called, and she was trying to do, what's that thing where you grow lettuce and stuff with water?
Hydroponics.
Yeah, she was trying to do that, and then importing strawberries and doing things like that. Customs kept deliberately, well, she claimed deliberately, her crops or her things for like 2 months, so they were all dead when she got them. I mean, it's very difficult, and the sand, you can't really grow stuff in sand. So the soil isn't good on the island. I mean, the mainland, the jungle area and the Maya Mountains there and the Hummingbird Highway, it's beautiful soil, and there you can grow stuff. Banana plantations, we got stuck in a banana plantation once. Yeah.
I have a question about the writing. What's the motivation for the people who go to your blog, Gutsy Living, and contribute every Monday?
Oh,
What do they get out of it?
okay. Many of them are getting ready to publish a book or already have a book that they've published. And I have succeeded in getting some sponsors. I think I've got 15. So what happens is we get one story a week. I link back to their website, to their Twitter tweets, and their LinkedIn and their Facebook pages and their book. And people who come, I've got people who want to read these gutsy stories, and so they go to their sites and purchase their books. And the other thing is we have a contest every month. So there's either 4 stories or 5, depending on the weeks, and people vote. So they get their friends or people who don't know them vote for their favorite story of the month, and then the winner gets to pick a prize from the different sponsors. And some of the prizes are like, well, originally I had GM, who was offering a free loaner car for a week, but now it's mainly editing services, manuscript consultants, story structure editors, Writer's Digest, podcasting, how to do podcasts. He's offering 30-minute free consultations. So it's all things that blogging, free blogging tips, different things like that they win. So the incentive is basically they get more readers. Yep.
How big is your audience? You know how many people go to your website?
You know, as far as, if you're talking about unique hits per month, it's like 5,000.
Oh.
But that's nothing when you think about, they talk about having 20,000
What happens
or whatever.
if you put Gutsy Living in Google? Do you come up first?
Mm-hmm. Well, the word gutsy, because, yes. But how many people actually search the word gutsy? The secret is to do the search engine optimization with words that most people are searching. But yeah, I've been doing...
Well, the new CIA director likes that.
You see, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about search engine optimization? Do you guys know that, what that is?
Do you... Well, are you interested?
I don't think I do it successfully.
I switched to a WordPress blog from Blogger, which I should have taken right away at the beginning when I started blogging. The reason you want to start, and I don't know if you all blog or if you're interested in learning about that, but it's critical today, because if you want to do like a virtual blog tour, if you can either pay a company to do it for you, and they'll submit your your story, whatever, to other reviewers, but it's much better to have people who know you and know your story. Search engine optimization is, with WordPress, is an easy way to, well, easy. It's a way to pick keywords. You can check on Google AdWords which words people are searching. And what you try to do is, when you write a blog post, is to use some of those keywords that relate to your topic and that people might be searching for. It's just a way to get more visibility, to be on the first page of Google when people are searching for something specific. For example, I have the last story is about a woman who went to Bangalore, India to teach English for a year. She lives in Colorado. So we did a Google search about teaching in India, and we made sure that we put those words in the title and in the post itself, so that people who are searching for, I want to teach in India, her story might pop up. So there are little tricks like that. I'm not an expert on SEO. There are so many people who know a ton about it, but I just try my best to follow those things. Yeah.
So are you still confused with the Google Shopping? How difficult is it? Still difficult? Because I have, coming from Czech Republic, it's been a lifelong I don't know if it's an affliction.
Yeah.
I will go shopping and have a certain idea, and then I will come out empty-handed because there's just too many choices. And it's been 40 years
Wow.
since I left Czechoslovakia, because it used to be bad or worse. That's the only choices we had. You went to buy shoes, it was bad or worse. It was either Czech-made or Russian-made.
Oh,
And
wow.
then you suddenly I was thrown into Sweden, where in Sweden it was bad and maybe a little better, you know, in
Yeah.
the 70s, in the 60s. So there was a little better. I remember the first time I went to a store in Sweden to buy clothes, and I was just so overwhelmed, I left in tears. And then when I first came to the United States, I went to a supermarket, and I think it was, I went to get toothpaste or something like that. I'm looking at all the toothpaste, and I was just, I had this like feeling, I had to get out of there. I couldn't
Right.
do it. It was just too much, you know.
I-
And it's never left. It's always
Oh, really?
that way, yes.
Okay. Well, for me, I tell you, it took me about 6 months to get back in the routine. When I first came back, I was driving 40 miles an hour. Everybody was overtaking me, and I was mad. It's like, slow down, take it easy, enjoy life. And I would take my dog for a walk, and I would look at all the flowers and the plants. And I would tell people, why aren't you looking at the cobwebs? Look what the spider did. And they thought I was nuts. But I loved it. And you know what they talk about meditation and yoga, and a lot of people are into that on the island. And and this is just me, I don't know. I could never get into meditation here in the US. My mind is always, I can't slow it down. And especially now with social media, it's like, ooh, I'm at the computer all the time.
Yeah.
But in Belize, I would wake up every morning and it just happened. It was the only time in my life that I was so relaxed that I actually felt spiritual. I've never been able to get that feeling back in living here because life is hectic.
Is it a missed feeling? Is it something that you would like to revisit?
Well, I would, and people tell me, you know, you can do that by practicing yoga and meditation and all this. And I don't know, maybe there's something wrong with me, but I don't feel I'm capable as much as it was easy in Belize. And also nature. Oh my gosh, when you're looking at the ocean and the waves, right there, your boat dock, and the sky, and everything just seemed so beautiful.
May I ask a question about docking boats? How much does it cost to dock a boat there? Or is it similar to what we've got going on here?
Well, we had to use a boat every day to go shopping and take our kids to school, and you could dock for free for 2 hours. Anywhere, any pier in town, 2 hours free. But as far as, are you talking about big boats like catamarans? I never experienced that. I know that there are companies there. There's one called TMI, and I know it's owned by 2 Danes. And but I don't know what the fees are. But people would come in these gorgeous boats, and one actually hit the reef, and people were mad because his anchor, I think, was just kind of destroying part of the reef. But yeah, are you a boating person, or yeah? Have you been to Belize? No.
I have not been to Belize. I've built my own boat.
You did?
4 years.
Wow.
I've lost it since then.
Oh no. Wow. What kind of a boat?
It was a 1955 Navy utility boat that I made into a motor yacht.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. That's worth a book.
It's already a book.
Oh, it is a book.
Yeah, it's just not up on
Oh.
It's not up yet. Yeah. I have it.
So it's your adventures in the book, with the book, with the
It's called
boat?
Raising the Ruby Tuesday, and it's about building the boat. About 4 years it took to build the boat.
Wow. Fascinating. You have to give me your card.
Indeed.
You have to write a gutsy story.
Yeah.
You have to be on the blog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, does anyone else have any more questions?
Yeah. Any more
I
questions?
got a ton of questions. Are you tired?
No?
Do the locals there practice voodoo or something weird?
I don't think so, no. No, I have to tell you
I
that
think that's for babies.
there, the Americans who move there are kind of two types of people. There are those who are escaping the U.S., who are...
Criminals?
Yeah.
Oh. They got the money from illicit crime and
Yeah. And then there's those, and there are a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of alcoholics who hang out in the bar from 9 in the morning till midnight.
Is it rum there?
Yes.
Do they make rum?
They make rum.
I'll bet there is.
And Belgian beer. Actually, the owner of Belgian beer died in a... Everything over there is weird. His plane was being... His small Cessna was being repaired. And apparently, it flipped over and he was killed. Because some bolts weren't attached. You hear stories like this all the time.
So the people that turned you enemies, were they the locals or were they the
Well, I have absolutely, I'll tell you, I don't like to badmouth things, people, but the owners of the 3 villas who were relying on rent to rent it out to tourists are also dependent on the locals because of the boat guy that takes the tourists to their place. So we got threatening emails from them that they basically wanted us to move. They didn't want us, they said, you can't start a business in the house. You can't have more than 1 boat. You can't have a dog. Once your dog dies, no more dogs. And your kids have to be quiet. We don't want your kids making any noise. And yet they were renting to other people who had children who were making a ton of noise. Take your towels away. We said, this is not a resort. This is a residence. What? So we got a list of all these things that 3 people against us, and it was voted on.
So it wasn't the locals, it was the...
They made life uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. And we could have stayed
Yeah.
if we had obeyed,
Yeah.
but we felt like people were spying on us and we didn't feel comfortable
Well, you're running out
anymore.
of money too, right?
And we were running out of money. We didn't know what else we could start, and we didn't want to start a dive shop. I mean, everybody has a dive shop on the island.
So how did you feel when you came back? Did you feel like at all that it was a failed event?
No. Surprisingly, I have absolutely no regrets. I am so happy because it changed, like I said, it changed my son that was going down. Who knows where he would have ended up? In jail? I have no clue. So the minute that he changed, and that was the most important thing, and then the fact that I realized what's important in life. You know, we don't live in a beautiful house like we had. We've downsized twice. And stuff doesn't matter to me. I don't need stuff. In fact, I like decluttering because then I can take off and go somewhere. I don't feel attached. So that's what it did for me. I will be honest. I say that paradise is a place within you and it's not a physical location. That's very true. But I have to be honest. I struggle with that still today because I still want to find the perfect paradise as a physical place. And I'll never give up thinking that there is a place, but I realize that it all comes from here.
Malibu.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we wanted to,
It used to be 25 years ago, but it's
still
not
pretty
anymore.
nice.
Yeah. It's,
I'm sorry.
That's what they were saying in the Hamptons in 18.
Yeah, right.
Right.
oh wow.
Well, we wanted to thank Sonia so much for
I believe that you just touched on something. There indeed is a physical place for everybody because some people, like for instance, I can't be without the ocean.
Right.
There's no way. I would rather live in a little shack by the ocean
Yes.
than where I'm
Right.
living right now.
Right.
Because it's suffocating.
I
And some people like to live in the desert. So that's number one.
Yeah.
You find the place that
Personal.
you're
Right.
personal, and then you find the paradise.
Yes.
yes. That's
what
very
it
true.
is.
That is
Hey,
true.
did everybody fill out one of these?
We're going.
We're
It's
going to have a raffle. Did anybody?
two.
Did you? Okay, so
It's
here you go. Did everybody else fill out one? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Sonia.
thank you.
Oh, just one. Why are you drawing?
No, not me. Oh, would you like to draw them?
But nobody get mad at me if I don't pick you.
She's still filling
I
those
will.
out.
Yes, we have one more.
I'm not in there either.
Be a good girl. Yeah, be a good girl. You're going to not pick almost everyone in the room, right?
Yeah, I know, might as well.
Wait, one more here.
Oh,
Oh, do I just?
perfect.
All right, here she goes. Oops.
Sorry. Whoops, I got two, I think.
You
One,
did.
two.
You did.
Boom!
Perfect.
Leah! It's you!
I've never won anything in my life.
Whoa!